suppliers. We've seen more and more credit card processing suppliers that are competing for business. But the challenge that this client faced is the credit card fees were too high. The dealer suspected that there was money on the table, but they couldn't see exactly what the opportunity was, didn't really have any benchmarking. Well, the action that was taken, we quoted both traditional and pass-through processing options. Pass-through has been where you're passing through the credit card fees to the customer. I know this is controlled state to state. For instance, in New York, last time we looked at this, you could not pass through the credit card rates to the customer. So this will change and this will vary state to state. But we recommended the structure that fit the dealer's mix. The opportunity here in year one savings alone was $209,768 by looking at pass-through and just comparing the rates to competitive market rates. So over the course of 3 years, the opportunity here was about $648,000. So big opportunity. This is one that's becoming more and more competitive, but we are seeing more dealers proactively addressing this area of expense. As we look into the second opportunity here, property tax reduction, the challenge this client was facing is the group was interested in looking at their property tax position and again thought they were leaving money on the table, wasn't sure, had to do some fact checking and benchmarking to understand where they stood. The action that was taken, we had a partner that led the review and analysis and revealed significant improvements across the group's portfolio, which resulted in year one savings of just over $31,000. As we look at the 3-year benefit, just shy of $100,000 over 3 years. But this is property tax reduction, kind of a newer category for us that we came across here in the last 3 to 4 years. The third opportunity, marketing services and CRM. So the challenge the dealer was facing, they were interested in exploring less costly options, was their objective here for their CRM and their marketing services stack. So the action that was taken, sourcing and quoting reviewed multiple options to consider, other options to move away from. And we built a comparison the dealer could decide from. So multiple options. Typically, we recommend quoting with 3 or 4 competing suppliers. So you have, option A, B, C, or D, and making sure the services line up exactly. But overall, this resulted in about $56,000 in year one savings, or over a 3-year period, about $173,000. So you can see how these savings start to chip away, especially as you don't just look at the 1-year benefit, but years 2 and 3. This is a big one here, small package transportation. When we talk about this category, we're looking at vendors like UPS, FedEx, and resellers as well. The challenge the client was facing, envelopes and small package rates were climbing consistently, and volume kept growing, likely due to acquisition as well. But really no one knew the line item or had time or the expertise to renegotiate. But we reviewed the direct and indirect providers, meaning resellers. You'll see a lot of resellers with FedEx and UPS. But we came to an optimized package for strategies and renegotiated rates. Something to consider here too, when you look at the classification of packages, ground versus next day. In a lot of cases, we find there's a lot of next day air packages that are going out, and just moving that to ground, unless it needs to be rushed, can save significantly here. But you can see the year one savings with this client of $322,455, and we're just shy of $1 million over 3 years. So this is one you want to pay attention to. Look at your rates, whether it's UPS, FedEx, or resellers. There can be significant savings. We are seeing these rates on the rise significantly. Shop supplies. This is one where we tend to see a very broad supplier base. Now, shop supplies, we're talking about wheel weights and batteries, nuts and bolts, and razor blades. The list goes on. But the challenge the client was facing, the shop supply costs were too high. There were way too many suppliers. The fixed ops director were managing multiple suppliers. We've seen as many as 20 suppliers for a one-store group, which is way too many to manage when you can get away with one supplier and a backup that provides all your needs. But there was really no leverage when the invoices arrive. There's no leverage when in terms of your spend when you're working with multiple suppliers. So the action taken, We reviewed the customer managed and vendor managed strategies, and we built a consolidation plan. With shop supplies, either the vendor can manage your inventory or you can manage your inventory. We recommend you manage the inventory, set the min-max levels so the vendors aren't overstocking you just to hit their quota for the month. But overall, this is a big opportunity, again, with vendor consolidation and driving spend to one supplier and then having a backup. But what resulted in terms of the savings here, year one savings of 175,000 or 541,000 over 3 years. So this is not a category you typically need a contract in, just a price lock. Look at all the items that you're ordering the most often. If you collect about a 3 months worth of invoices, you get a pretty good feel for all those items you're ordering consistently. Another Colorado win here, Schomp Automotive. They negotiated a new rebate program with the preferred supplier and then consolidated to one single source. That was 143,000 in year one savings alone. So huge win for Schomp out of Colorado. P cards, purchasing reward cards. So we're seeing a trend of more and more dealers moving to credit card payments versus ACH or check to pay suppliers for the benefit really of payment simplification, but also cash or rewards that you can earn just by paying your suppliers. So the challenge here, the client was not using cards consistently to pay suppliers. They were missing the rewards as a cash opportunity. I think they were getting some type of credit back on their statement. But the action here, we move from points to cash back. We always recommend the cash back versus points or miles on payments and routed the eligible spend through the program. So you're going to find, if you haven't already, that a lot of suppliers will accept credit card payments. Some will charge a fee. Some will not accept credit card payments. If they're charging a fee, that typically outweighs the cash back cost. So there's ways you can run, depending on the bank you're working with, that your total supplier report coming out of the DMS to figure out who accepts them, who doesn't accept them, and who's going to charge a rate. But overall, the potential here was 20,000 in year one savings over 3 years, just shy of 60,000. The seventh opportunity here, managed print services challenge. There was a mix of corporate and desktop printers. Costs were rising in places that really no one at the dealership was tracking. So the action taken here was they reviewed the full print footprint, developed a new strategy, and lowered the per piece cost by looking at the invoices and statements, resulting in year one savings of $7,400 or 23,000 over the course of 3 years. Credit bureaus. This is one where we look at process as well, and I'll get into the details of that. But the challenge here, the credit bureau costs were assumed to be competitive. They assumed they were competitive. It was a larger group, but after the analysis, they found out that they weren't. After comparing their rates to competing suppliers, they found out their pricing was off. The action taken here, they benchmarked, they quoted, and they reduced all the line item pricing, and then also reduced the number of unnecessary pulls. And this tends to be a sales process change that we recommend, where if a customer comes in as a couple, in most cases, sales will pull 6 credit bureau reports automatically just based on their process. What we find is if you get that desired credit score on the first or second pull, the other 4 or 5 pulls are unnecessary and adds a lot of line item costs. So just by changing the process, you're able to reduce costs significantly here if you get that desired credit score on pull 1 or 2. But the result here was 81,000 in savings, 252,000 over the course of 3 years. Schomp Automotive, we had a process change with them with Informative, reduce their unnecessary pulls, identify those unnecessary pulls that were in place, change the process, and then save them 63,000 alone in year one. But this has got to be a focus. This is again just a process change and also making sure you're paying competitive rates for the pulls. So a few different strategies here as relates to credit bureaus. DMS systems. This is a hot ticket item. This tends to be one of the biggest spends in dealerships today, the top 3 that we see consistently and have so for the past 25 years. The challenge is large groups sought to determine costs under a consolidated agreement across all the rooftops. So we tend to see, as groups are growing, multiple DMS systems, and the goal obviously is to get one DMS system, one contract, one expiration date moving forward. The action taken here after the analysis was conducted across every store, they compared the current state to the newly negotiated pricing. And this resulted in a huge home run here of 2.2 million in year one savings. And then when this was locked in, this is an agreement over 3 years. The result was about 4.2 million in savings over the course of 3 years. So this is a big one. 10 years ago, I would say this was an untouchable category. Dealerships did not want to think about changing DMS systems because of the disruption that led to each department. But now, as sales are fluctuating or hot one month and low another, depending on the brands, dealerships seemed a lot more open to negotiating or at least looking at their DMS system, whether you're on CDK or Reynolds or Automate or Techion or PBS, some of the up and comers as well. But a big opportunity here. The 10th opportunity, debt and treasury optimization. The challenge, debt costs were running too high, were uncompetitive. The dealer wanted to pursue other avenues without really any clarity on what was achievable here. So the action, we quoted alternatives and modeled the spread, looked at lowered rates, opened a new stack of opportunities. Year one savings alone were 201,000. And over the course, this is a 5-year benefit versus the 3-year we've been talking about on most categories, but just shy of just over 1 million over the course of 5 years. But this is a newer category for us as well, but with huge impact. Vehicle history reports. So the challenge we're looking at with this client, the costs were really part of a monthly spends. They were hidden in with other spends, which we see with a number of suppliers. They were growing without anyone really questioning the unit price, and really getting into the unit prices, getting the detailed breakdown of what are we actually paying for our vehicle history reports when some of that spend is lumped in other expense categories. The action taken, we explored low-cost carrier options and ran the comparison. Overall, the savings opportunity here was just over 41,000, or over the course of 3 years, 128,000. But this is a big one. I know there's a number of our clients prefer using Carfax. They have a great name in the industry, but I know a lot of the clients that we've talked to are looking at exploring other options if that service level is up to what Carfax is. And Carfax seems to have a great job on the rate name recognition, but there is a big opportunity here as we look elsewhere. Office supplies, again, another one with a very broad supplier base. We tend to see clients shopping on Amazon for specials, maybe local carriers, Office Depot, maybe even Sam's Club and Costco for paper and cartridges and whatnot. But this challenge the client was facing, too many suppliers. Weren't sure where to order office supplies from based on the month. There was too much spend on the high-cost non-contract items, and pricing was inconsistent across each store. We see that quite a bit with office supplies. Again, this is not an area you need a long-term contract in place, anywhere from 1 to 3 years. But we recommend getting a negotiated rate. If you look at your 400 to 450 most purchased items throughout the year, and a lot of your office supply vendors can provide these usage reports to you, but you understand what we're ordering the most often, and then locking in those rates and getting competitive quotes. You can find those quotes from competitive benchmarks, whether you're looking at local suppliers or national or regional. But overall, we want to get competitive rates in place and consistent across each store. One store, that makes sense. That's a little simpler to analyze. But as you're adding in 5 stores, 10 stores, 20 stores and beyond, you want to make sure you're paying the same rate across each, especially in paper and cartridges, which make up roughly 60% of office supply spend today. So the action item here, we built a core item list. We recommended a single supplier that could provide all their needs with consistent pricing and competitive pricing, resulted in 62,000 in savings alone just on office supplies. And over 3 years, just shy of 200,000. So a big opportunity. Category 13, accounts payable processing. The challenge here, wanted to the current client had AP handled in-house, And the action, they identified the opportunity to significantly reduce their in-house AP costs by outsourcing that. So bringing an outside vendor. This resulted in just simple savings of $40,000 or $129,000 over the course of 3 years. So it depends on if you want to have this in-house or look outside, but there's a big opportunity there. 14th opportunity is IT support and software. Seeing more and more requests coming here on IT support. But the challenge was the costs of the various software products were increasing year over year. Seems to be a common trend of those price increases and price creep. The action taken, we reviewed every package and sourced new competitive pricing. So again, looking at invoices for at least 3 to 4 months and comparing that to competitive rates, which resulted in just shy of $70,000 in savings for year one. I don't think we actually locked this in for 3 years. This was just a 1 year opportunity. And the final category, hazardous waste. This is one we've seen in some cases you're paying to get rid of your used oil, and in other cases you're getting a credit. But the challenge, there was an expiration of agreement that was coming up with the incumbent supplier and really created a decision with no clear comparison. We didn't have any benchmarks at the time to compare it to. But the action, we obtained quotes and we benchmarks against market rates. This is one that moves pretty consistently, in some cases quarterly, but it resulted in a credit of $28,321 over the course of 3 years, locking in those rates just shy of $90,000. So a significant opportunity there as well. But those are the kind of the top 15 categories that we're seeing in the dealership space, specifically Colorado. Again, you'll have a copy of these at the end. I'm going to go through some other wins we're seeing as well, some notable mentions. But these are real dealers in your state, real categories that have been identified, and real money that's going back to the bottom line, even in the form of audits. So the first one up here, this uniform and laundry audit resulted in $13,000. Rickenbaugh saved over $13,000. We've been working with them since about 2018. But in a lot of cases, we find that uniform suppliers, if you're not taking a close look at the bill, you're being charged for techs that haven't been there in weeks and months, in some cases years, going back to some of our uniform audits we've conducted over the years. But also just copy of the contract, usage reports or invoices to make sure, are we being charged the correct amount for the pants, the shirts, the jackets, the mats, and so on. But that's one to take a look at. Another opportunity here is waste and recycling. So your waste containers, Schomp consolidate all locations under one supplier versus having multiple, which resulted in $20,000 plus in annual savings just by getting one agreement in place and making sure those rates were competitive for each of the containers that varied from store to store. Third opportunity here is auto parts non-OE. We're working with a 3-store Colorado group that we saved over $25,000 in year one by moving to a certified pricing for auto parts non-OE. We tend to see a broad supplier base here where you see CarQuest, Napa, O'Reilly, Factory, and so on. But an opportunity there just by comparing certified pricing. Janitorial services, another 3-store group, kept their incumbent, didn't have to move away. They leveraged savings from our negotiation and resulted in about just shy of $12,000 in annual savings just on cleaning the building. And the last opportunity here, we don't see this one too much, but beverage and break room supplies. There's an 18-store dealer that we were working with since 2019. We went back and audited the agreement and found just over $14,000 in overcharges in beverage and break room supplies. So big opportunity there. As I mentioned, we've got quite a presence in Colorado. One of our longest standing partners, Phil Long, been great to work with. Trevor Mack, been one of our main points of contact, been awesome to work with, but had a lot of success in Colorado. So everything we've been talking about today has been specific to Colorado. We do work in most of the other 49 states, but specifically here, this was tailored to Colorado opportunities. So really what we're trying to get to, we were going from the left to the right here. So we're looking at overspending 25% for supplies and services to really go into a plan where we're reducing costs by 25% and really improving profits to the bottom line. miss supplier discounts without quoting and setting business objectives. As you break down each of these projects, now you're identifying new discounts and greater cash opportunities. We're seeing a lot of supplier overcharges today. With a detailed plan like this, you have supplier price compliance and new cash opportunities. Contracts that aren't managed, and you see those auto renewals in place. By getting a grip on expenses and formally quoting and understanding what the contracts are. Now you have contracts that are managed centrally and with alerts in place, so there's no surprises for those auto renewals. Unexpected price increases or price creep, like we were talking about before. Now you have competitive, locked in, consistent prices regardless of the location, whether you're one store or if you have 30 and 40 and beyond. And big thing we talked about today is there's too many suppliers in place. As you break down each category, the goal is to get a narrow, optimized supplier base regardless of the expense, whether it's shop supplies or your shipping costs or your uniforms. Is a narrow supplier base. You have less suppliers to manage, easier on the management team, and also on the back office staff that's cutting these checks each month, which we know is a costly process. And then you're moving from weak controls and risk to tight policies, controls, and you're reducing risk overall. So life will become simpler kind of by following these steps and really having a defined plan in place. A little bit about StrategicSource. Where'd you guys come up with this information? Well, we really work with our clients. We manage the supplier relationships overall to minimize costs and improve profitability. Our team really is professional negotiators, quoting. Compliance audits are a big part of our program to make sure suppliers are charging you what they should, what you've agreed to. Our average savings are 25% across those 150, 160 categories. We are vendor neutral, meaning we're not pushing any suppliers to our clients. We do have what we call certified suppliers, where we vetted them. They have great rates. Their service is great. They've got a good name in the community, but overall, we don't take as much of a cup of coffee from them. We work on behalf of our clients, but that's as far as our relationship goes with suppliers. We have guaranteed minimum 3-to-1 ROI. That's upwards to 5 and beyond for depending on the size of the client that we show in scorecards. Something to mention as you're taking these strategies too is that you don't have to switch suppliers to notice the savings. Everything we talked about today, if you have the benchmarks and you have competitive rates, whether they're at the local, the national, or regional level, 50% of the time we see our clients prefer to stay with those suppliers. In some cases, those suppliers are local, maybe they're customers, but they want to keep those relationships intact that they've built for decades. So something to keep in mind. And we've been doing this for 30 years, saved our clients over $1 billion and counting. So $1 billion and counting we've saved. We're over 1,000 dealerships we're serving, and again, 150 plus expense categories. Savings Clubs awards, we put goals in place for our clients in terms of what we want to achieve based on their size, how many locations they have, where they're located, and the brands that they serve. But it's just fun and rewarding to set these goals, hit these goals, and then realize the work is just beginning. But we have plenty of savings awards and references from clients we're working with. So really the final word, we're seeing our clients, before they're bringing us on, they're overpaying by at least 25%. Every month you wait is really profit walking out the door. We tend to see dealerships that they know there's an expense problem, but really don't know where to start. And it tends to be a Band-Aid approach where let's put more into marketing, let's put more into advertising, selling more cars, maybe focus on the service to fix the expense problem. But the reality is the expense problem doesn't go away without a defined plan. And it's a lot more efficient to attack expenses than to put more into marketing and advertising to fix that expense problem. So really the question we see isn't whether you can afford to fix it, it's whether you can afford not to fix it. If anyone wants a copy of the presentation on the right here, the deck you see, you scan that, you'll get a copy of today's presentation and all of the categories and action items we talked about. If you'd like to contact us, the one on the left is here. My information is below. My name is Chris Austin. I got my email and cell phone there, so feel free to scan. Just a few things on our services. We have a 36-month program, a 24 or superior and standard. Most of our clients are on the superior, where we attack expenses strategically over the course of 3 years, anywhere from 36 to 54 projects we do over the course of 3 years. That typically provides an ROI of 5 to 1. So that's been a very popular model for us. And then we have a short-term program here, the strategic spend analysis, which is really a spend tune-up over the course of 60 days, where we do a sampling of our long-term services here. Plenty of dealerships ranging from 1 to 3 stores all the way up to 20 plus. You'll see Phil Long and some other Colorado shop on here as well, but plenty of references there. And also the categories. We talked a lot of expense categories today, really the top 15 we're seeing in the last quarter. This is an alphabetized list that if you scan the presentation, that you can see what that kind of complete list is, and this is growing too. But that could be a good reference point for you. And some of the certified suppliers we're working with today, that could be a good reference point in terms of suppliers that have a great name in the community, ranging from credit card fees to shop supplies to shipping costs and so on. But I'll go back. I'll leave it on here if anyone else wants to scan for either contact us or downloading the deck. But that's all I got, Christy. I hope that was helpful.
Was incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for sharing. Those were significant savings for some of our Colorado dealers. So I appreciate you presenting this information as a resource for our members. If anybody has questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat. We can wait a few seconds. I had also put up Chris's contact information in the chat if you need it. Let's see if anything comes through. And I apologize for the technical difficulties in the beginning. We will post this webinar to our website when it's complete, so you can access it later, and we can also share the PowerPoint presentation directly. Well, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions. So thank you all for attending. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Chris directly. Or if you missed his information, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with Chris.
Thank you again, Christy. Thank you guys for attending. Hope this was helpful to you, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you much.
Thank you.